Hey guys, welcome to your next flipped classroom lesson. This is our March vocabulary, and you received this sheet on February 20th, but you can actually write down whatever date you are recording these notes on. And then the quiz date is going to be Monday, March 16th. So all of these words are going to be coming from our next play, which is A Raisin in the Sun. So the first section is going to be our prefixes, suffixes, and roots, which is the very first section on your note sheet. The first one is fair, F-E-R. The meaning is to carry. Some examples are transfer, so trans means across, so to carry across, to transfer. Or ferry, like the boat, which carries passengers. The second root is fract, which means break. Of course, we've had many examples of fractures in our class so far this year. Another example could be infraction, which would be to break a rule. Next is gram. Gram means writing. So for example, telegram is writing that goes across a space. Grammar would be our rules of writing. The next one is mar, M-A-R. So there are several different roots depending on Greek, Latin, whatever. This particular version of M-A-R means sea. There are others though, just so you're aware. So marine, that's of course a branch of the military that deals with boats, water, etc. Marina is a place where you can dock your boat. And finally, mem. Mem means to remember. Examples are memory, which is something you remember. A memo, something you write down to remember. Memorial, service where you remember somebody. So make sure you get the meaning right. The meaning of mem is not memory. The meaning is remember. Next, we'll go to our commonly confused word sets. And for those of you who are new to Flipped Classroom, if the PowerPoint gets going too fast on the YouTube video, you can just click pause at any time. So the first set is accept with an A versus accept with an E. So accept with an A means basically to receive something, to allow it in, to say that it's okay. For example, I accept your offer. And a couple tips or tricks would be accept with an A. I always think of other words that start with that letter. So affirmative means yes or allowing. And accept with an A is always a verb. Accept with an E, this is kind of tricky because the type of word it is actually a preposition. However, if you can put in the word but or with the exception of, then you basically have the right version. So for example, everyone earned an A except Joe. So everyone earned an A but Joe, or with the exception of. And this one, I think about the X in accept and how you'd be kind of crossing something out if you had an X. Basically, with except with an E, someone or something is left out. So it's kind of like you're Xing them out. Next is principal and principal. So many of you probably learned some of these before, but there's another meaning that you may not have learned before because it's not required to be taught until 9th grade. So principal with a PLE, this is the easy one because it only has one meaning. And it is a thing. It's basically a law, a doctrine, some kind of ideal. It's something that you live by, and of course, huge connections to 7 Habits with principle-based approach to life, principle-centered. An example, I learned the principles of algebra, the laws, the rules. So I don't have great tricks for this one, but the LE only has that one use. The principal, P-A-L, most of you probably learned when you were younger how the principal is your pal and it's the head of a school. It can be a thing. However, there is also an adjective version of this. So the adjective version of principal means the main or most important thing. So this is a descriptive word that means whatever comes after it is the most important. So for those of you who actually remember Mrs. Thornburg, this example's for her. My principal said our principal job was to be a student. And in that second example, the second version of the PAL, it means the main or most important job. So that second one has two uses. Finally, our vocab words. Again, they all come from A Raisin in the Sun, which we will be starting very soon. So a lot of these words are actually in the stage directions, which is why we're going over them now. First one is futile. This is an adjective, and it means something that's useless or sometimes pointless. Example, he made a futile attempt to save his grade. It was useless. Next one, evoke. This is a verb, and it means that something calls up or produces some kind of feeling, some kind of memory. It basically inspires something. So, for example, the smell of egg casserole evoked memories of Christmas morning. You want to make sure you are writing an example of each. If you want to write your own examples, I'm fine with that, but make sure you are actually writing an example. Number 3, distraught. Another adjective, and this means you are deeply agitated or bothered. For example, Mary was distraught for several days after the argument. Defiance is the next one, and this is a thing, this is a noun, and it means resistance to something. So there are verb versions like defy, but this is a thing. The example, the prisoner's defiance landed him in solitary confinement. Furtively. Furtively is the next one. This is an adverb, which means it describes how you complete a verb, how an action is taking place. So this means something is done in secret. The example, inspired by Diego Duke, hoping Miss Mathers would not mark him tardy, Diego furtively walked into class. So with an adverb, it comes before a verb. In this case, the verb is walked. Cliché is the next one, and you do need the accent over the E. If you're typing into Microsoft Word without it, then it will actually put it in there for you. This is a thing, and it is an overused expression or idea. It's something that you hear over and over. It gets kind of bland. Of course, you want to try to avoid cliches in your writing. Example, Jackie's friends tried to comfort her with cliches after the breakup. Next word, permeated. This is a verb or an action, and it means something is spread throughout. So diffused is another science word that is very similar to this word. Example, the toxic smell permeated the city buildings. Pretense is the next one. This is one of the trickier ones because it is a thing, but it can be hard to work into your own sentence. So this is basically a false appearance. It is pretending, but it is basically something that someone pretends. So it is a thing. It's not an action. Example here, Larry's positive attitude was just pretense. He hated the class. So in this case, it was just something he was pretending. Undistinguished is the next one. This is an adjective, and it means something that's common or nothing special. So if you are distinguished, or if something is distinguished, it's special. It stands out from the crowd. Undistinguished means it doesn't. Example, his poor manners gave the impression that he was undistinguished. He was just a common person. He didn't really have great grooming or great manners. Assimilate is the next one. So you may have learned about this in history class. This is a verb, and this is when you have a minority of any kind, so religious minority, racial minority, ethnic minority, that on purpose blends into the dominant culture. So they give up some of their traditions or beliefs or customs to be more like the majority. And throughout history, this can be seen as both a bad thing and a good thing, just depending on how you're talking about it. If any of you guys take different AP history classes in the future, you'll definitely talk about this. So the example, many immigrants feel pressure to assimilate into American society, which again, they adopt things from the dominant culture and maybe give up things from their own. Bastion, this is a thing. This is a secure stronghold. So for example, the king hid in the bastion during the battle. So it's any kind of safe place, and it can be metaphorical. You know, my room was a bastion from my family or something like that. Last one, forlornly. So forlorn is the main word in here, and then the ly makes it an adverb. So this is when something is done in a way that looks pitiful, desperate, or hopeless. Example, the student forlornly handed in the vocabulary quiz. All right, that's it. So you're going to put this sheet in tab number 2, and it is going to be the first thing for March. When you come in on Thursday, we'll be doing a bunch of different flipped classroom stations related to these March vocab words. So make sure you bring all of it to class. It will also be checked in at the beginning of the hour for points. See you guys then.